The board of Star Entertainment dumps the gaming group's chairman. Optus and TPG do $1 billion deal to take on Telstra in the bush. And one of the most expensive experiments in radio history has kicked off, with Sydney's top-ranking FM show taking on Melbourne. Welcome to Fear and Greed, daily business news for people who make their own decisions. It is Tuesday, the 30th of April, 2024. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, after the show today, you have an interview coming up with Peter Deans, the former Chief Risk Officer at Bank of Queensland and founder of Not Without Risk Consulting.
Also, an expert witness at the inquiry into Crown Resorts in Western Australia and Victoria. He knows the gaming scene very well. So we talked to him about what's going on at Star, what's going on at Crown. Tale of two cities there. Star is in all sorts, whereas Crown received its unrestricted licence in Sydney last week. About a month ago, it got the one back from Melbourne. So we talk about that, but also the lessons for CEOs and management from what's happened at these big gaming groups.
Yeah, it is a really good interview. And he, as you say, Peter knows this space so well. It is worth a listen. It's coming up after the show. Sean, I've got to squeeze in a very, very quick plug for the Fear and Greed newsletter. It comes out every Wednesday. So you've got about, 24 hours or so to head along to fearandgreed.com.au, put your email address in, sign up, and you get the Fear and Greed newsletter every Wednesday. It comes out mid-morning on a Wednesday, and it's full of you. It is full of your opinions. There's got to be a better way of saying that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Full of me.
Yeah. We'll move along from that very, very quickly, Sean, but head along to fearandgreed.com.au and put your email address in so you can see what Sean has to say tomorrow. The main story, though, this morning, the chair of Star Entertainment Group, David Foster, has been removed from his position by the company's board a week after conceding he'd been overly emotive and trigger-happy with his text messages to the then CEO.
Yep, Star Entertainment claims another casualty as the board desperately fights to retain the gaming group's ability to operate in New South Wales, its home and biggest market. Mr. Foster became chair in March last year, and during the current second inquiry into whether Star should hold a gaming licence in New South Wales, texts emerged showing the chair and then CEO, Robbie Cook, wanting to go to war with the regulator and its appointed overseer of the group, Nicholas Weeks. There were also texts that claimed rival Crown Resorts was getting a fairer go from its overseer. Now, last week, Mr. Foster said he is best placed to steer the group, but the rest of the board disagree. They want new leadership. Anne Ward has been appointed chair, while Mr. Foster, who's been running the group day-to-day since last month, will stay until a replacement CEO is found. Mr. Foster has also taken leave from his other chairman's role at Bendigo and Adelaide Bank. Yet another senior exec gets done by Star Entertainment.
Goodness me, this is really quite extraordinary, isn't it? It's a revolving door of management at Star, isn't it? There's been quite a few. When you look at the list, there's been quite a few C-suite executives leaving since, kind of last December.
Yeah, so we've had the CEO, Robbie Cook. We've had the Chief Financial Officer, the Chief Legal Officer, the Chief Customer Officer, the Chief Transformation Officer, the Chief of Staff, and the CEO of its Gold Coast precinct. They've all left. Now the chair's going. Wow.
God, there's just so many new people. You'd be having non-stop meet and greets, wouldn't you?
The farewell cakes.
God, every second day it's a card being passed around. Goodness me.
That's right. Mr. Foster's position was untenable, really, ever since he said last week that the casino wasn't in a position to operate without supervision. Given he's the chair, that's quite an admission. Ms. Ward told the Financial Review that she wants to transform Star into a compliant business with strong leadership at all levels and where there's an open, honest and constructive relationship with relevant regulators. Good luck to her. It's a very tough job. Now, Star's share price jumped at 7% yesterday on the news.
Yeah, it really is just an ongoing headline, the Star at the moment, isn't it? Every single day there seems to be something else coming. How did local markets finish up yesterday?
Well, the S&P ASX 200 closed up nearly 1% higher, retaking a large chunk of Friday's losses. It followed a strong weekend on Wall Street. Real estate investment trusts and tech stocks led the market higher. Every one of the 11 sub-indices closed up, though. In terms of the large caps, there was plenty of movement, nothing overly drastic. There wasn't big moves, just lots of 1% moves or less. All the big banks ended higher. REA Group was the standout, WiseTech Global, Transurban and Wesfarmers all did well. BHP, Energy Group's Woodside and Santos, Coles, James Hardie's, Aristocrat Leisure and QBE all ended lower. In corporate news, Adore Beauty needs a new chief executive after Tamlin Morton flagged her intention to exit the top job at the online retailer later this year for personal reasons. Boss Energy jumped 9% after unveiling its first quarterly report since beginning uranium production at its Honeymoon project in South Australia. A lot of investors like that one. Strike Energy was the best performer of the top 200 yesterday. It rose 10%. Health Tech ResMed reported a rise in revenue and profits in its latest quarterly report, and its share price rose 3%. An IT company, Megaport's share price dropped nearly 2%, despite it upgrading its outlook. Now, investors were concerned about weak recurring revenue and KPIs during the March quarter.
All right, and what about international markets?
Oil's slipped as the US pushes to broker a peace deal between Israel and Hamas that would reduce geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. Gold's also lower. The Aussie dollar's trading at 65.6 US cents. But Michael, I've got some good news. I know you've been waiting for it.
Go on.
About a week ago, I said I'd have a look into the price of almonds.
You did. I thought you'd forgotten. You promised that you were going to do a bit of homework and kind of explore the world of almonds with me.
I did. In fact, I did it a few days ago, but there was so much news around that we couldn't fit it into the show. So I've done it. So
go on. Here, this is where we spear off a bit of a tangent, but it's going to be worth it just in case you get an almond question come up at your next pub trivia night. Go on.
That's right. Now, remember, it was Select Harvest, which is Australia's biggest almond producer. Its share price took a dive. Kind of got us wondering about almonds. So almonds are basically sold raw or roasted. They're used to produce products like almond milk, oil, butter, flour, and marzipan. They're among the world's most popular tree nuts and highly nutritious and rich in healthy fats, antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. Do you know who the most famous advocate of the almond is? You probably do, actually.
I imagine it's a squirrel of some kind.
Could be you. Wasn't that your nickname at university?
Yes, yeah, and it continues to be my nickname for quite a lot of people. I was trying to keep that clear of the Fear and Greed universe, but now it's out. Thanks, Sean.
It's out. Now, Barack Obama is one of the most famous advocates of the humble almond, once telling the New York Times that he ate just seven, lightly salted almonds every night. Now, he later admitted it was a bit of a joke. Still, he likes his almonds, and so almonds are very much associated with Barack Obama. The US is the biggest producer. Australia is a top 10 producer. Select Harvest, of course, being the number one grower. The good news for Select Harvest is that Rabobank research suggests that prices, which have plummeted, will rebound over the next 12 to 18 months. Even with higher production levels, there's likely strong export growth for Australian almonds in particular, while health and plant-based food trends are supporting demand. Hence, the outlook is positive for the humble almond grower.
I might be wrong here. Do you remember there was another famous advocate of almonds?
Oh, who was that?
And that was the former New South Wales Premier, Bob Carr, who then went on to become the foreign minister for Australia at a federal level. And he was quite a fan of activated almonds.
Oh, what's an activated almond?
I don't know, but it sounds very, very healthy. It sounds quite exotic and very, very healthy. But I just remember this would have been probably a decade ago. There was quite a lot made of his love of activated almonds.
Oh.
And so now, like Barack Obama, Bob Carr, and squirrels everywhere.
And squirrels everywhere.
Well, thank you, Sean, for taking us on on a bit of an almond journey. I've learned many things today.
So have I, though. So have I from you, Michael.
That's what I'm here to do. Help out.
Thank you, squirrel.
We'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has flagged tougher treatment for men who act violently against women ahead of talks with premiers tomorrow.
Mr Albanese said there is no easy solution, and state and territory leaders will discuss whether the legal system is working in the interests of vulnerable women and children, and whether there needs to be more safe spaces for those fleeing violence. Any changes to bail laws would need to be done by the states. There have been several high-profile murders of women in the past week in Western Australia, Victoria and New South Wales. Yesterday, Queensland Premier Stephen Miles announced $36 million in funding to boost organisations dealing with victims of domestic and sexual violence. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister himself came under fire yesterday when an organiser of the Canberra rally in which he spoke at over the weekend accused him of misogyny and showing a lack of compassion, claiming he had abused his power when he took to the stage to speak. The organisers claim he had refused to speak initially, but then took his place. Not quite sure who's right and wrong there, but it's just distressing that on such a serious issue, we end up with those sorts of fights, whoever's right or wrong.
Yeah, indeed. Now, Sean, Optus and TPG have done a $1 billion plus network sharing deal, which will broaden TPG's coverage to 98.4% of the Australian population. That's nearly everyone.
Nearly everyone, Michael.
Probably didn't need to point that out to you. Please go on.
TPG will pay Optus $1.6 billion over 11 years for access to nearly 2,500 Optus mobile towers, effectively tripling its regional 4G and 5G coverage. TPG's 4G coverage will go from around 400,000 square kilometres to 1 million square kilometres. Not bad. It means basically it will become a serious competitor in the regions to Telstra. As part of the deal, Optus will pay TPG about $400 million to use some of its unused network spectrum. The two companies will maintain control over their own core networks and continue to operate their own networks in metropolitan areas. The deal between the two comes after Telstra and TPG walked away from a similar deal last year, which was blocked by the ACCC. Now, after it blocked that deal, the competition watchdog said to TPG, which of course includes Vodafone, TPG, iiNet and Felix brands, to enter negotiations with Optus to take on the dominant player Telstra in the bush. They did so, and now they've done a deal. Meanwhile, yesterday Optus's parent company Singtel came out. It said it had to write down the value of its assets by about $3.5 billion, most of which, don't know exactly how much, but most of which relates to Optus.
Sean, another casino story, a little bit different to our lead today though. Crown Resorts will cut up to 1,000 staff in a major restructure following a lack of customers in its Melbourne, Sydney and Perth casinos.
The gaming group is blaming stricter regulations and the cost of living crisis, according to Nine Media. Crown employs more than 20,000 people and is one of the biggest employers in the states in which it operates. Hardest hit will be Melbourne, which has the largest overall headcount. The cuts will be split between its corporate and casino divisions, as well as in the remediation team. That, of course, was bolstered while the business worked to regain its suitability to operate in Melbourne and Sydney. Private equity group Blackstone bought Crown for $8.9 billion in 2022. Over the past month, it's won its right to operate without an overseer in both Melbourne and Sydney, but it does need to reduce those staff numbers.
Perpetual is in exclusive talks with private equity group KKR on the sale of its corporate trust and wealth management businesses.
ASX-listed Perpetual has been in play for several months, and yesterday it confirmed talks with KKR taking place, and a conclusion is expected in coming days. Perpetual has been running a sale process on its corporate trust and wealth management divisions after it received a $3 billion bid from Soul Patts late last year. Now, Perpetual's response to that proposal was that it materially undervalued its business. Perpetual was briefly in a trading halt yesterday morning. When it came back on, it rose 3%.
And finally, Sean, Sydney's most successful FM breakfast radio show, The Kyle and Jackie O Show, debuted in Melbourne on the KISS network yesterday, hoping to do what really no other radio announcers have successfully done, be loved in both Sydney and Melbourne.
I think you would know this story better than I do, Michael. So Kyle Sandilands and Jackie Henderson signed a 10-year, $200 million contract in November last year, which includes syndication into Melbourne. And for them, they just have financial incentive if they succeed. Australian Radio Network, owner of KISS FM, has promised to spend between $4 and $6 million launching the show in Melbourne. That is big money in radio land. And the group's hoping to attract revenue into that city, notwithstanding the show itself is brash, crass, and sometimes offensive. It does have a massive following in Sydney, though. Now, Sydney's radio market is worth $200 million. Melbourne's actually bigger. It's worth about $220 million. So that's the size of the prize for KISS FM. Anyway, good luck to Kyle and Jackie O. What do you think, Michael? It is your area of expertise.
Look, I reckon if anyone can do it, it'll be these two. Because, the long-standing kind of conventional wisdom is that breakfast shows in particular must be local because they must be able to talk about what's going on in your local area and all of this. But I do kind of feel like entertainment works wherever it is. And with a show like this, which is less about the city in which it's being broadcast from and more about the chemistry between the two hosts and the subject matter that they discuss and the callers that get involved and the whole team actually kind of gets involved in this show and the shock value as well. And the fact that Kyle in particular is so unpredictable that it kind of keeps people coming back to it, that I think there is a reasonable chance that it actually will be able to secure an audience in Melbourne and actually grow and grow and grow, and maybe in doing so kind of debunk this theory now that a breakfast show must be local to that market in order to succeed. So look, I certainly wouldn't be writing them off. I reckon they've got a reasonable chance of success.
Fantastic. Look forward to seeing what happens.
There we go. International news. Elon Musk's surprise visit to China over the weekend appears to have paid immediate dividends, with Tesla clearing two key hurdles to introduce its driver assistance system to the world's biggest auto market.
The US electric car maker will partner with Chinese tech giant Baidu Inc. for mapping and navigation functions to deploy what it calls full self-driving. According to a report on Bloomberg, Tesla has also cleared a key data security and privacy requirement in China, which would help ease some of the concerns over its data security issues. The move comes just hours, really, after the Tesla chief executive made an unannounced trip to China on Sunday, seeking approval for driver assistance software that could help arrest the car maker's revenue decline. Now, Telstra really has struggled in China. It had about 11% of the market, 10.5% 12 months ago. In the fourth quarter of last year, that fell to about 6.7%. Obviously, it is one of the two biggest auto markets in the world. It will be eventually the biggest auto market in the world. So not surprising to Elon Musk has gone over.
AstraZeneca has admitted for the first time in British court documents that its COVID vaccine can cause a rare side effect in an apparent about turn that could pave the way for a multi-million-dollar legal payout.
The pharmaceutical giant is being sued in a class action over claims that its vaccine, developed with the University of Oxford, caused death and serious injury in dozens of cases, according to a report in the Telegraph of London. Lawyers argue the vaccine produced a side effect that has had a devastating effect on a small number of families. Now, the first case was lodged last year by a guy called Jamie Scott, a father of two, who was left with a permanent brain injury after developing a blood clot and a bleed on the brain that has prevented him from working. Now, he got that after he received the AstraZeneca vaccine in April 2021. AstraZeneca is contesting the claims, but wrote in a legal document submitted to the High Court, and I quote, "It is admitted that the AZ vaccine can, in very rare cases, cause TTS. The causal mechanism is not known." Now, TTS causes people to have blood clots and a low blood platelet count. It's certainly the first time that AstraZeneca has conceded that that side effect does occur.
All right. Up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview with Peter Deans, a former Chief Risk Officer and founder of Not Without Risk Consulting. And as you mentioned before, Sean, an independent expert advisor to the Victorian and WA Royal Commissions into Crown Casino.
So an excellent person to talk to about the state of play in that sector, what's going to happen to Star, what's going to happen to Crown, and why it's all occurred, and the lessons that we should draw from it.
Yeah, it is a must listen. It is up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au, which is also where you sign up for the newsletter, which comes out tomorrow. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Tuesday, the 30th of April, 2024. Make sure you're following the podcast and please join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.